Hi, I'm your host Vasco Duarte. Welcome to the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast, where we share tips and tricks from Scrum Masters around the world. Every day, we bring you inspiring answers to important questions that all Scrum Masters face day after day. On Fridays, we talk about the product owner role in Scrum. We talk about patterns and anti-patterns that relate to ours and the team's collaboration with the product owner. And we've also put together a course to help you navigate that relationship. There's 18 modules, nearly 8 hours of tools, techniques, videos, handouts, presentations you can use to help you and your team work better with your product owner. The course is available at bit.ly/coachyourPO. All lowercase, all one word. That's bit.ly/coachyourPO. And now, on to the show, the Product Owner Show. Hello, everybody. Welcome to our TGIF and Product Owner episode this week with Kevin Pedersen. Hi, Kevin. Welcome back.
Hi, Vasco. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So, Kevin, today is Product Owner Day, and we want to explore some good and, of course, some not so good examples. We'll end up with the great example of a product owner so that we can end up on a high. But let's dive first into what might have been, Kevin, the worst product owner anti-pattern you've seen in your career.
Yeah, so for me, one of the worst habits a product owner has is the product owner that knows it all.
How does that express itself?
The way I see it is the product owner tells the team how to do their job. So they go as far as designing the system for the team and saying to the team, here, you just go and code this. Right? And they don't have a say in it at all. And often it's not the best solution. It could be a very elegant solution, but there could be better ways of doing things, but they're not open to other ideas. It's my way or the highway. And then with that, when the team doesn't deliver as quickly as they could themselves, maybe they were, for example, a developer themselves, so they know, oh, this thing will only take me a couple of weeks, right? But the team, it might take them a different amount of time. So now they start putting more pressure on the team because they're not doing it as well as they could have done it. So that for me is the worst kind of product owner to work with.
Tell me a little bit about what have you seen are the consequences when a PO takes this stance, right? Like tells them what to do and even judges them on their ability to implement, saying, come on, that when I was a developer, that used to take 2 days. What do you mean 2 weeks? So what are the consequences you see happening in the team when a PO takes that kind of stance?
Well, I think the first thing you see is a complete lack of engagement. The team members will turn up to meetings because they're forced to, but they won't engage. This is especially true in sprint planning. Everybody's quiet, right? And now we're all working remotely. Videos will be off. Nobody says anything, right? And then the product owner sits there for like an hour or two and tells everybody what they're going to do. And then everybody logs off. And as a Scrum Master, you're sitting there thinking, was the team actually even there? Did they even listen to
I couldn't hear them. Did they say anything?
Right. So I think that's the first thing you see is a complete lack of engagement. And then with that then comes a lack of like alignment, as it were. You can see that the team member starts to misunderstand things, but they don't go and check with the product owner because they're scared. So then the whole kind of lack of psychological safety comes into play where they try and do what the product owner wants, but they don't engage with the product owner because they're scared of being told off. And so lots of bad habits can come through that. I think it's not just one thing, but that's the thing that comes to mind straight away.
Yeah, absolutely. For me, the expectation is also that the team members, one way or the other, will do things that they think are a bad idea because that's what they were told. And then when, of course, those invariably fail, they will come back with, but you told us to.
Yeah.
Right. So there's no ownership. There's no pride in the work that they do. And it's also a form of lack of engagement, but it's a lack of engagement with the work itself. It's like, I'm just a coder now. Like you tell me what to type and I'll type it.
Yeah. It's just that lack of accountability, like you say, in ownership. Suddenly they'll start doing the absolute bare minimum they can get away with to meet the needs of what the product owner wants, right? Instead of actually having that dialogue and conversation with the product that's saying, maybe there's a better way we can do this.
So, of course, for Scrum Masters, the most important is what happens next, right? We've detected this anti-pattern. We've seen the team and the product owner dynamic kind of, wither away. What do you do, Kevin, when this happens?
So one of the things I instill with any product manager I work with is the principle that as a product owner, you're not allowed to give solutions to the development team. Your job is not to give them a solution to implement. Your job is to give them problems to solve. So how do you define the requirements in terms of a problem that you can then give to the team, and then they can think of ways to solve it? And then during planning or backlog refinements, even they can come up with 3 or 4 different ways to solve that problem. And then as the product owner, it's then your decision around which one do we take out of those solutions. So you don't give them a solution to implement, you give them a problem to solve, and then you decide which solution we're going to try first. And if you can even form that in the form of an experiment, even better, right? So that's one of the things I insist with any product owner I work with is that's the concept and the culture we try and create with the dynamic between the product owner and the team.
Yeah, I think that's wonderfully practical because it is about, okay, so describe the problem for them and then hear the multiple solutions they have to offer. And you're allowed to pick a solution, but only one they have suggested.
Yes. And you might have a better solution. So feel free to kind of offer a solution if they haven't thought of one, but let them come up with their solutions first, right? And don't disregard those solutions just because you think you've got the best one, because it might not necessarily be. You might be surprised.
Yeah, and sometimes the PO might be surprised with a much better solution coming from the team.
Absolutely.
And then it becomes a win-win. Awesome. All right. So that was the anti-pattern. But of course, we want to end up on a high, a positive note here on This Week with Kevin. So Kevin, share with us what might have been potentially the best product owner you've ever worked with.
So this product owner was a very interesting lady. She was part of business. So she wasn't an analyst or anything like that, but she was very good at design thinking and coming up with new ideas on how to develop the product to the next level. And when we went through the product owner training with her, you could see she took it on board. She understood all the concepts. She was really good at breaking down items into small pieces that the team could work with, and everything was running smoothly. The problem we had was not necessarily with the product owner, but with her superiors. They were always trying to force in much more demand than the team was capable of. And the reason why I've pointed her out specifically as the best product owner I've worked with is because we all saw where the problem was coming from. But as the coach and the Scrum Master, we didn't have access to that person. We had no way of coaching that person or helping that. We call it the hippo, the highest important paid person's opinion, who was giving all this demand in. So what this product owner did is we enabled her to coach upwards herself. So, for example, one of the problems that we saw was too much context switching, right? So they would change their minds often on what they wanted to do. So we taught the product owner how to run the name game, right? Where you write names on stickies and you do one letter at a time. And it shows how context switching is a really bad thing. So then she took that and at their next team meeting at the higher level, she actually ran through that game with all those higher level business people. And they loved the game. They thought it was amazing. And then we could start to see now that they were actually giving us less work because they wanted us to focus on one thing at a time, right? So we could see that change happen over time. And then the next problem came up where we were dealing with too much work in progress. We said, okay, well, how about running the agile playing game with them? And again, they love that simulation. So then we could kind of introduce concepts through this product owner. So she actually became the coach for the higher business people because we couldn't have access ourselves. And that for me is what made her the best product owner we've ever worked with. Is not only was she really good at being a product owner with the team, but the fact that she was willing to then go and coach people that we didn't have access to, it was fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. A great example of how when there's a good collaboration between product owner and Scrum Master, things can go much better. Like in this particular case, Scrum Master, that was you, did not have access to the business stakeholders, but the PO had, and she could go and do the coaching there. I think that's a brilliant example of how a good partnership can significantly help the team.
Absolutely.
Kevin, this was great. It was a great week with you. Unfortunately, we're getting close to the end. But before we do go, tell us, where can we find out more about you and the work that you're doing?
So Growing Agile is a agile coaching company in South Africa. We have a website, growingagile.co.za. So feel free to go on there. We have blog posts on there, which we are terrible at doing regularly, but we aim to be better. So go check out those blog posts to see what we're up to. I'm also quite active on Twitter at Kevin Pedersen. You can find me on Twitter as well. I use that medium quite a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll put the link to those on the show notes so that people can find Growing Agile, a agile coaching company in South Africa, and also Kevin's Twitter, and do interact with Kevin. Maybe ask him questions so that he gets more motivated to write more blog posts, right?
That would be amazing. Yes, content. I don't mind writing blog posts. It's always knowing what to write is the hardest part, right? Knowing what people are going to be interested in.
Absolutely. So go and ask him questions. Inspire him to write some more blog posts. Kevin, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much for your generosity with your time and your knowledge.
Thank you very much, Vasco. It's been a pleasure.
One more week of the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast is over. But there's a lot more we have to share. We have developed our own membership site where you find a community of active and engaged Scrum Masters. In this site, you get access to exclusive content and get to interact with us, your podcast hosts, as well as the best Scrum Masters in the world. Join us at scrummastertoolbox.com/podcast and keep this podcast free of advertising. See you next week for one more week full of Scrum Master tips and tricks. We really hope you liked our show. And if you did, why not rate this podcast on Stitcher or iTunes? Share this podcast and let other Scrum Masters know about this valuable resource for their work. Remember that sharing is caring.